Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to a very special game that I prepared for you today. It's Leela C0 versus Stockfish 15 in the closed Sicilian, and the cool part about this game is that we'll see again the Stockfish engine brutalizing its arch enemy Leela, but with the black pieces, which is really incredible when you think about it harder, because there are not so many games that you see in this top engine database that are won by black. Even in top grandmaster level you cannot see so many games that are won by black, so it makes really this game really special. And what I really liked about this game is the fact that the closed Sicilian was played. It's a solid opening. It's, I think, an opening that doesn't give an advantage immediately for one engine. So it's, I think, a solid opening that can be played by both sides. Many strategical ideas can happen, many opportunities for both sides. So as I said, it's not like Stockfish won the game against Leela C0 because Leela was forced maybe to play the Grob opening in the beginning, maybe even a different bad opening in the early stage of the game. No, it's a solid opening that can be played by both sides, and you can really use many of these elements that we'll see now, that will Stockfish show us now, because Stockfish will introduce to us really new ideas of the closed Sicilian and also great theoretical novelties, which is really remarkable. We want to see this kind of stuff. We want to see improvements because we want to, of course, use them then in our home preparation. So let's see now the game. So it's Leela C0 with the white pieces against Stockfish 15 with the black pieces in the closed Sicilian. So e4 by Leela, we have c5 by the fish, knight to c3, and here we have knight to c6. We have g3 preparing, of course, f4, then d3, bishop to g2, knight to e2, bishop to e3. So this will be now white's main setup, and then with his pawns f4, e4, white wants to create certain pawn mobility, really some dynamics here on the king side. So in the continuation we have g6 played by Stockfish, bishop to g7, and here the control of the d4 square is in the beginning the main strategic goal for black. So in the continuation we have bishop to g2, bishop to g7, d3, d6, so pretty normal stuff. We have f4, and now comes e6, and I really liked this approach by Stockfish 15 because you could have gone also with knight to f6. It's perfectly fine. You not lose the game because you played maybe a slightly worse continuation, but I really like more this idea, e6 with ideas knight to e7, and then you see when we occupy the d4 square and maybe we get challenged by some minor pieces of white around the square d4, still we have the opportunity to reload, sort of, to play this other knight on c6, which would control also then the square on d4. In order to prevent that, white would have then to play the move c3 in order maybe to kick away your outposted knight from d4, and when that happens then you weaken also a little bit your d3 square. I'm telling you this because the d3 square will be very important in the continuation of this game, so that's why I like really this style, knight to e7 and then occupying the square d4. So really normal solid stuff. It has been played many times, but in my opinion it's much better than this knight to f6 ideas in the beginning. So in the continuation, knight to f3, we have knight to e7, kingside castling, and also kingside castling by Stockfish. So we have now a4, and this is a beautiful move by white. I faced this move many times. I've reached this position many times in my life, and I never liked this move by white because first of all, one of the ideas by black, there in the beginning I think there are two ideas for black how to make progress here. You can go with a central breakthrough with the move d5, or in some occasions you could go here with the rook to b8 and then to play b5 b4 to expand here maybe on the queen side, and with the support of the bishop you could have some fun. But this move a4 slows down really your progress, and the problem is now, even if you prepare this move, even if you prepare b5 further with the move a6, I don't like it anymore because bishop to e3 will happen, and now what to do? Look at this, your opponent is threatening d4 and there's nothing that can be done, I think, immediately. If you play knight to d4 immediately, I think e5 is a very annoying move to handle. So then you see the knight is a little bit loose here, so that's why you have to play, instead of this move knight to d4, you would love to play now the move d5, but look at this, the pawn on c5 is hanging, so you cannot break through with your normal goal. So that's why here after move a6, pardon me, a4, the a6 wasn't played by the Stockfish engine. Stockfish played b6, stopping also in some occasions the further progress with the move a5. And look at this, if now bishop to e3 happens, now c5 is protecting, and now finally we can go with our d5 breakthrough. Okay, well, you can be challenged maybe with this, e takes d5, we take, but look at this, we have now really a firm mobile center, and now we have taken away what was in the beginning the main strength of white, these two connected pawns on f4 and e4. And even if white of course forces the position now with the move d4, this is not good. In order maybe to leave you with an isolated pawn on d5, this is not good, because we can play knight to f5. Look how beautifully this knight comes into the game. Bishop to g4 is an opportunity to keep the tension around the square d4. So here black is much better. So it's not working anymore for white as bishop to e3 with the move d4 idea. So as I said, this is something worth to know. So really important move already by Stockfish 15, b6. Here with this move, Stockfish is saying, okay, I will not have the ability maybe anymore to play on the queen side like we supposed to play many times in the Sicilian, but now at least I have the opportunity to break through with the move d5 or maybe with the move f5. So this is now a different story. So now Stockfish changes the direction of the attack from the queenside attack into a central attack. So in the continuation we have queen to e2, and now queen to d7, we have knight to d1, and Stockfish plays now really a novelty, really a new idea in the close Sicilian. This position has never been reached before in chess history, maybe in some Blitz bullet games that we don't know about, but at least I'm not seeing games in the database in this particular position. Bishop to a6 is really a beautiful idea, because again it stops the potential d4 move. Look at this, both of this important pieces, the queen and the rook, are lined up here on this long diagonal on the light square. So it's now really a beautiful tension that Stockfish created now on light squares. So it makes really now the position for white really complicated in the continuation of the game. So we have now the move c3. So here Leela c0 desperately is trying to play the move d4 to advance the pawn, but look at this, this bishop on a6 is, as I said, preventing this idea. So now in the continuation we have f5 by Stockfish, and I really like this move because many of us would play maybe even the move d5 immediately, would even try to break the position like this, but I think then afterwards you can face many position problems with the move e5. Now white has an expansion here on the in the center of the board. White has a very important space advantage, and I don't think that you could have fun while playing this position from black's perspective anymore. Now g4 could happen in the near future, then knight to h4, f5. So I think white would break you with the potential pawn mobility here on the king side. So that's why f5 is much more correct, because now e5 is not working. So the space advantage is not working because of this idea. Takes first we take on e5, whatever you do, knight to e5 or f takes e5. Look at this now, the d3 is weak, so now it's a clear target. It would be, I think, game over here for white. So that's the beauty about the move f5. If for instance white takes now, e takes f5, then of course knight to f5 is going to happen. Maybe black could get challenged with the move g4. This wasn't played in the game, but let's see also different lines. Then still we have this one, this square on h6. If we get challenged maybe with rook to e1, still we can use now this this rook into the attack, and now still this pawn on g4 is hanging. Now of course maybe h3 can happen, but look at this, we can even break with the move d4, pardon me, e5. We can play d5, knight to f2, e5 is possible, f4 is always weak. So here black is, I think, much better. So in the continuation, after move f5, rook to e1 was played by Leela c0, attacking now indirectly, of course, here the pawn on e6. If something gets cleared, then the e6 is a vulnerability, so that's why a rook to e8 competing now on the e file. So we have queen to c2. Now Leela c0 finally gets out of this tactical mess on this long diagonal. We have now h6 preventing knight to g5, and here in the continuation, after move knight to f2, we have bishop to b7. So now Stockfish is saying, I had my fun on this diagonal. Both of these pieces, the queen and the rook, escaped from my attack. At least white lost 2-3 tempi in order to get out of this tactical mess. So now it's time to compete on this diagonal, where also this dangerous bishop of white is here on this light square diagonal. So in the continuation, we have rook to b1, and this is an obvious preparation by Leela c0 to push the pawn on b4. And there is a certain rule in chess which says when you can play a same idea, and but by moving a pawn or moving a piece, you should always move the piece, because when you move pawns, you cannot retreat anymore with the pawns, so you cannot go back with the pawns. So you could maybe stop the b4 progress with the move a5, and okay, you not lose the game immediately because you play the move a5, but look at this. Okay, you have stopped the b4 progress, but now you have several weaknesses. b5 is weak, maybe even in the later stage of the game the d5 gets much worse. Look at this, the b6 is weak, so you created now new weaknesses in the position. So that's why if you want to stop the further progress, let's try to see now a different idea. Maybe you can pause the video and try to stop the move b4 but without moving the pawn. So maybe just for fun, take your time and try to see now, of course, this beautiful prophylaxis that Stockfish 15 saw in the game. So okay, just for fun, just sort of a study. Okay, of course, the same thing can be played with the move rook to c8. If now b4 happens, of course, you cannot do that because you're vulnerable here on the c file. Now knight takes b4 will happen, and then the game is over, I think, for white. So that's why it's really beautiful how Stockfish sensed this potential activity on the c file. So it's making this progress on the move with the move b4 really impossible here for Leela c0. So we have now queen to e2, now e5 here by Stockfish. So Stockfish battles now in the center of the board. We have f takes e5, we have knight to e5, and now knight takes e5 also by Leela c0. So if you try d4, this is not possible. Again, I think white would love to play now this continuation, but it's of course not possible. Takes, and now d4 is weak. You see there's simply too much activity here on this around the square. So in the continuation, after move knight to e5, we have d takes e5, we have a5 by Leela c0. So Leela is trying to split this small pawn chain. It's trying to create further weaknesses in black's position, and Stockfish accepts the challenge. We have b takes a5, we have a rook to a1, and now queen to c6. So now look at this. E takes f5 is not going to happen because you get checkmated here on g2. So really beautiful battery here on the light square diagonal. So after move queen to c6, Leela c0 played queen to c2. Again, I think in this game Leela played too many times with the same piece. You see, Leela didn't make any progress, played several times with the queen without even improving the position so much. So now after move queen to c2, here Stockfish simply plays queen to b6 and protects now this pawn on a5. Let's go back. If black would have maybe be challenged with the move rook to a5, then of course queen to b6 is going to happen. You have to retreat with rook, and now a very interesting idea would probably happen with the move f4. Now in my opinion, this is still a much better position for black, because white could be challenged with sort of a king's Indian attack. If you have played maybe the king's Indian attack, then you know that many times this position can happen with the move e5, and then you're supporting the f4 pawn. Now in the near future even g5 can happen. Maybe you can even prepare, not immediately because this square is covered, but maybe in the later stage of the game you can play h5, then g5. Look at this spin. Maybe then afterwards we can play g4, f3, who knows, the pawns are rolling. So this could be a very dangerous position also for white. So the evaluation is +1 here for black in this particular position. So as I said, this idea is also not working to take out the pawn on a5. So in the continuation, after move queen to c6, as we said, queen to c2 was played by Leela c0. We have now queen to b6, e takes f5, and now bishop to g2. If you play, of course, here g takes f5, this is also solid because you have now two connected pawns. Nothing special also, I think, in white's position, but Stockfish played the more correct move. Of course, bishop to g2 is now decoying the king a little bit, because look at this, even if king to g2 happens, still will reach now this position. G takes f5, and now I would not love to play anymore this game from white's perspective, especially because of this light square problems in front of the king. So this queen will come into the game, and then maybe we can include some other pieces into the attack. So it's, I think, a desperate position here for white. So let's go back. So after move bishop to g2 here, Leela c0 tried a really interesting idea played now f6, so sort of a fork here against the bishop and the knight. Stockfish simply retreated with the move bishop to a8, and Leela took now the pawn on pardon me, the bishop on g7. So Stockfish plays first bishop rook to f5, protecting now the pawn on e5. Still Stockfish is saying I will have time maybe in the later stage of the game to take out the pawn on g7, but here Leela C0 takes of course this one, bishop to h6, and protects now suddenly the pawn on g7. And this was really a wild position, but still Stockfish has a very important tactical element here. Stockfish can always build this queen and bishop battery on the long diagonal, and maybe even deliver some checkmates on the long diagonal. So in order to prevent it, you have to play knight to e4. That's your only defensive goal here that white can play in the continuation of the game. But even that, if that happens, even if white manages to play the move knight to e4, still we can play c4, and this move c4 will be also very important in the later stage of the game, because look at this, when we play c4, then we are deflecting a little bit here the pawn from the defense of the e4 knight. Sort of, this knight is not on e4 immediately, but as I said, if we build this battery, that's the only defensive strategy that white can play. Okay, we have to say it, black's king is also a little bit endangered, but we can always play some ideas of king to h7, maybe attack the bishop, then afterwards to take out this pawn. So I think still, although it's a weird position as I said, but I still think that white's king is much more endangered here than black's king. And okay, Stockfish choose to play here rook to f5. Stockfish said I want to protect my center, which is more important than maybe this outside pawns that Stockfish lost now. So okay, after move bishop to h6, now comes this move c4. So Stockfish sensed this defensive strategy and is saying I'll not allow you here some defensive ideas. I'll not allow you to create a blockade around the square e4. So we have now d4, we have g5 attacking now the bishop. The bishop is hanging, so we have, that's why g4, first of all a counter attack. We have queen to c6, again a counter attack against the counter attack, so now threatening of course the checkmate on g2. So that's why a rook to e4 covers everything, and now rook to f7. So we have now bishop to g5, and now e takes d4. Still of course the rook cannot move because of the checkmate threat on g2. We have now c takes d4, and now queen to g6. And with this move of course the Stockfish is attacking the bishop on g5, but also creates a double attack against the rook. So at least Stockfish will now take the exchange. So in the continuation we have h4, Leela c0 at least protects now the bishop on g5, but now Stockfish simply takes bishop to e4, and after queen to e4 we have reached now this position in which, okay, Stockfish is up the exchange, but look at this, still Leela c0 has 3 pawns, and in my opinion, when I analyzed the game, I thought, okay, this is wrong, something went wrong here really in black's position, because now this 3 pawns will march, but look how Stockfish will defend this position really in a beautiful tactical way. So after move queen to e4, first Stockfish sensed that here is the open file. Here it's time to include the rook into the game, because if you're not playing now actively with your rooks, you could be really destroyed, because this pawns will march, so you have to be now really careful. So in the continuation, queen to g6, knight to g6, we have now h5, and now rook to b2, of course also attacking now the knight on f2. If you take, of course, then first we'll take out the knight, and look at this, white would have here triple pawns on the g file, but now we just create a check and take 1 2 3, and it's game over here for white. So that's why after move rook to b2 we have here knight to d1 attacking now the rook, and here Stockfish plays rook to b5, again a counter attack against this loose bishop here on g5. So there are not many choices for white. Let's see possible continuation in the game. Bishop to d8 was played by Leela c0, but let's see also this line, h takes g6. If that happens, then of course we can play rook to b7, and this is now very important to notice, because there's simply too many pieces on the first rank, so you cannot escape from this attack. Look at this, the bishop is hanging. First of all, you have to make a reaction. Maybe you play, I don't know, bishop to f4. I'm not even sure if that's the best move for white, but the most important thing is to recognize that you get rook to b1, and now after rook takes b b1, rook takes b1. There's not a good way to get out of this mess on the first rank, so the game is over. Still, of course, the king is holding this three annoying pawns, so that's not possible. So let's see different continuation. You could also try bishop to c1 to maybe cover your first rank sort of, but now you get knight to f4. You can maybe push the pawn further with the move h6. This is a normal idea, support this pawn on g7, but now knight to e2 is going to happen. Of course, you have to step back with the king. Now we take, and now we play rook to f6, and now this pawn will be taking. You cannot protect it because look at this rook is covering the 5th rank, so this is not working here for white. So let's go back. So as I said, bishop to d8 in this position was played by Leela c0. Stockfish continued here with knight to f2 anyway, with this preparation to play annoying check on e2. So we have now h6, normal idea. We have now rook to b3, and now g5 again. Leela c0 is trying to connect these pawns, is threatening also maybe in some occasions a very annoying g6 move. This is also something worth to notice. So in the continuation, we have rook to g3, and we have king to f2. If you play king to h2, if you're trying to escape maybe in this way, then it's not getting better because still you get rook to h3. You have to play king to g1. Look at this, knight to e2. We have king to g2, and now again rook to g3. You have maybe this square, but look at this with rook to f4 and rook to h4. We're threatening even checkmate, so you're forced maybe to play something like, I don't know, g6, but still rook to g6 is going to happen. Then afterwards we can take out this one. So black basically built sort of a mating net around white's king, so it's not possible. So after move rook to g3, that's why king to f2. We have now again this discovered attack, knight to h5. The king is attacked. We have king to e2. We have rook to d3. This is very important because again, Stockfish 15 built sort of a mating net where we want to play knight to g3. When the king moves here to e1, then we have rook to f1 would be a checkmate. So this is now the mating pattern that we should recognize in this position. Now Leela c0 has to defend this position against this idea. So here in the continuation, king to e1 immediately. We have now rook takes d4. So let's go back. Let's see if you play here the move g3. That's not possible because you get a beautiful checkmate on f1. So we have solved now this tactical problem. So that's why king to e1 by Leela c0. So rook to d4, we have bishop to a5, knight to g3, again a threatening checkmate on f1. So that's why here knight to e3 had to be played. Rook to d3, attacking now the knight. We have rook to c1, but now of course Stockfish simply takes out the knight, and this is now a completely winning endgame. So we have king to d3, again a new check, again a new check with this other rook. We have a new check, and now after rook to a3, Stockfish also took the bishop here on a5. Rook to c4, we have a check, and here after king to c1 in this position, Leela c0 resigned. Whatever you do is perfectly fine. The only thing we have to here, I think, is secure an annoying check on b8. That's the only way maybe for white to win the game, by playing rook to c1 followed with a rook to rook to c8, rook to h8, maybe promoting the queen. So now the evaluation is here plus 70 for black. Believe me or not, at least my engine at home is showing this wild evaluation, but it's, I think, completely losing game for white for sure. So really stunning ideas, I think, in the close Sicilian. Let's go back. I really loved this idea with the move bishop to a6. I think that's something that I use in my own games. This is a good setup, I think. First of all, this two knights that are controlling the center of the board. This knight this bishop very dangerous. This bishop is perfectly fine. Now with ideas to play d5, f5, still having the flexibility to play a breakthrough in the center. So it's, I think, a good setup against these types of ideas by white. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot because I think really that you can use some of these elements in your home preparation. If you want to see more beautiful positional and tactical games like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.